Well, I'm gonna get some backlash for this video. The time has arrived, you guys. It's time for my review for the long-awaited Demon Hunter album, Outlive. Now, before I get started, I would like to preface this for any newer viewers coming to this channel. As you can see in the background, I've got some Demon Hunter albums here. I own all of their albums. I've been a fan since 2010, back when The Worlds of Thorn came out, and that was arguably not one of their better albums. But despite this, I still got into the band, and they've been one of my favorite bands ever since. I've followed them on this channel frequently throughout every single album release. I like their music a lot, and I praise them probably more than I should. With that being said, this new Demon Hunter album isn't really all that great. In fact, it's probably their worst album ever. Before I really get into my problems with this album, let's talk about a couple of good things that I liked about it first. First off, as I explained in several videos beforehand talking about some of the songs that they released in promotion for the album, I do like the instruments for the most part in this album. I think the whole band is really good. The guitarists, Patrick Judge and Jeremiah Scott, are great. All of the guys playing instruments in the band still got it, still know what they're doing. They're really competent, and their work is really good on this album. One of the songs I liked on this album, probably one of the only songs I like from this album, is Patience from the Standard Edition. I'm going to get into a little bit more why this song stuck out to me, but overall I just really like the chorus, I like the vibe. I think they did a really good job with this song overall. It's definitely one of the better songs on this album, and I would even consider it as good as something from one of their previous albums. Another song that I really liked from this album that actually wasn't on the standard version is the Deluxe Edition bonus song, Fear That I Used to Know. Now, this is the first bonus song that's on the Deluxe Edition, so a lot of you haven't even heard this song, but I really hate that it's not on the Standard Edition because, for me personally, it's the best song on any version of Outlive. It has a really great chorus that I think is traditionally Demon Hunter-y enough, but it experiments also enough to be unique. It's also just a really great melody, and just overall, I just really like the song. It's a good song. And I really hate that it's a bonus song because that means for at least a year, a lot of you guys won't even be able to hear it. Unless you try to bootleg it or something. And that's pretty much it. That's all I got for the things I like on this album. That's not to say that this is a terrible album, okay? It's not terrible, but man, Demon Hunter really screwed up with this one, okay? The entire album just feels bland and lifeless. Like there was little effort put into, making this thing energetic or enjoyable to listen to. And it's not because it wasn't heavy enough or because the songs weren't really fast-paced. It just was really boring and bland to listen to. I'm actually surprised I got through it in one sitting. And that's one of the reasons why I liked Patience from the regular edition of the album so much, is that that was one of the only songs that I felt relieved this air of boredom and just general blandness. Listening to this album is like eating a bowl of cornflakes. It's plain, it's dull, there's hardly any flavor, and you just want to quit eating it about halfway through, and that's about this album, okay? I'd rather eat a bowl of Frosted Flakes, which would be any of the other Demon Hunter albums would be Frosted Flakes. This album is cornflakes, okay? It's plain as shit. And like I said, the reason this album is plain, dull, and boring has nothing to do with it being heavy. I would be okay with the number of slow songs and ballads that this album has on it, but when it does try to be heavy, it's still not any good. In fact, the heavy songs, Jesus Wept and One Less, are probably the worst Demon Hunter songs ever. They are cliche. They're honestly super, super hard to get through. I want to skip them like a minute into them. One Less has this guitar part during the chorus that I just hate. It just really, really grinds my ears and my nerves. I just want to skip it immediately. I don't know why they thought that little guitar riff was a good idea, but it sounds awful. Yeah, the two barn burner songs, as Ryan Clark would like to call them, on this album are honestly some of the worst Demon Hunter songs ever. Not just on this album, I do mean some of the worst. On top of that, when I was listening to this album, I couldn't help but think that this album sounded like a bunch of B-sides. And as you can see here, I have the deluxe edition of the album. When I opened up the booklet, to read Ryan Clark's notes on how he came up with the songs and what the lyrics mean, it started making a whole lot more sense because honestly, a good number of these songs are actually B-sides. Trying Times wasn't even a song in the first place. It was the first 4 opening lines to Jesus Wept, an already bad song, okay? They took the first 4 lines of that song and said, hey, let's turn it into an entire song. And so they made the opening song, which he says is supposed to seamlessly transition into Jesus Wept, but it's actually not seamless. It's abrupt, it's crap, and it's just, no, it's not good, okay? Not to say that the song Trying Times is terrible, but it's not that great, and you can tell by far that they just adapted this song from just 4 measly lines from another song. It's just kind of slapped together like that. If you saw my previous videos leading up to this album, you'll know that I was not a big fan of the song Half Is Dead. And after I read the footnotes on the song, it made a lot of sense because Ryan admitted that this song wasn't even originally for Demon Hunter. Ryan Clark wrote this song for a totally different band, and when the band didn't use it, he just decided to use it for Demon Hunter. I think that explains a lot. Yet another song, I think it's called Raining Down, is a literal B-side, okay? Ryan Clark wrote that song back in 2010 when they were on a world tour for World is a Thorn. And he never used it. But now, okay, he's just going to throw it on the album because I guess he just doesn't have any other ideas. So take into account these songs that were just lazily thrown in there either because it was a B-side or something some other band didn't use that Ryan wrote or just something they lazily throw together from 4 lines of another song. Take that into account and then realize that Patrick Judge also wrote some of the songs on this album, and you really only have a handful of songs that Ryan Clark put his heart and soul into, okay? It's pretty clear and evident that Ryan Clark didn't care as much about this Demon Hunter album as he did the past albums of Demon Hunter. And while I did know that the instruments were good and the rest of the band were into it, Ryan Clark, let's be honest here, is the glue of this band. He's the soul of Demon Hunter. So when he's not into it, it really shows. And it shows on this album that Ryan Clark isn't really feeling Demon Hunter anymore. He's got other side projects going on, Knives. And the songs he makes with those side projects are really good. So I know he still has the capacity to make good music. But only when he's passionate about it. And it doesn't seem like he wants to do Demon Hunter right now. This whole album feels like it was made out of necessity. It feels like Ryan Clark didn't even really want to do it. He just knew that the fans were expecting it and really wanted it, so he just did it to do it. To satisfy the fans or maybe to make a buck. Who knows? It's tantamount to having a friend who's really resistive to your plans to go out and have fun, but when they finally get around to going out with you and the buddies, they're just kind of a bump on a log and not any fun at all. This is this Demon Hunter album, okay? It's no fun, it's bland, it's boring, it's just not fun to listen to, okay? I couldn't listen to this album more than twice in a row, and I didn't want to listen to it again. In fact, I haven't listened to it in the past 24 hours because I just can't. There's only a few songs that I really enjoy off this album, and I don't like saying that. This is one of my favorite bands, okay? I really want to get up here and say that this is one of the best Demon Hunter albums ever, but it's not. Another thing that I don't like about this album are the lyrics, and a lot of people on the comments of my other videos were saying that the lyrics are what really impressed them about this album. Oh man, the lyrics. Just wait till you listen to the whole thing, the lyrics. The lyrics really aren't anything special, you guys. There are some songs that are better than others, but overall, this album feels really uninspired. Take it in contrast with their last album, Extremist. The lyrics of that album were culturally relevant and really hard-hitting. Even the title of the album, Extremist, was a very provocative statement based on current events of that time. Outlive doesn't seem to have the same inspiration, and I know this album is more personal for the band because of what they've been going through the past couple of years, but it doesn't really translate well at all. In fact, I feel like the vibe of this album they were going for was a little softer and a little more melodic because they wanted to convey the sorrow or the struggle of things they went through in the past couple of years. But again, it just comes off as feeling bland, lifeless, and boring. It just seems like Ryan Clark was playing it by the book, painting by the numbers with a lot of these lyrics here. And I really don't see why people are so impressed with the lyrics of this album. I really don't want this album to be that bad, okay? I paid a lot of money to have this album. I funded the album on their Kickstarter or whatever it was called. I paid like $50 for this deluxe edition, and I paid like $20 to have the regular edition. Like I put $70 into this campaign. I don't want it to be a bad, disappointing album. But I'm sorry, you guys, it really just is. If you look at it objectively, if you take your nostalgia away from Demon Hunter, if you take your fanboy passion away and just looked at it as a piece of music, it's really not that great. Like I said in my previous videos, if I was listening to Demon Hunter for the first time on Spotify, I would skip most of these songs. They are totally uninteresting. They're bland. They just feel like they're from every other metalcore or Christian rock band, okay? They don't sound special at all. I think it says something when one of my favorite bands comes out with an album that I think is worse than a comedy music album like Pink Season by Pink Guy. Yes, I'm serious. I like Pink Season by Pink Guy more than this album. I think the lyrics to that album are atrocious and disgusting, but at least the production quality and the music itself sounds better than what's on this album. So in conclusion, this album isn't all bad. It's got some enjoyable instruments in it, some enjoyable melodies in it. There's a couple of standout tracks that you should be able to enjoy. There's a couple that I didn't mention in this video that I talked about in previous videos, like Cold Winter Sun and Died in My Sleep, that are alright, enjoyable to listen to. And highlights like those will keep you listening to the entire album. But as for the in-between spots, they're really bland, dull, and boring. Like I said before, it's like eating a bowl of cornflakes. It's really not even that great, unless you add sugar, and unfortunately, there's really just no way to spice this album up. I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but I don't care. I've got to be honest, and I know I'm not alone in this because I've talked to some of my friends who are big Demon Hunter fans, and they've said the exact same thing. They think this is Demon Hunter's worst album. Even if they liked it, they admitted that, and they said that they wouldn't show this album to someone who's never heard of the band before. It's not a great album. I feel like Demon Hunter didn't do a good job in conveying the mood they were trying to get across, and it just didn't work. It's a conglomeration of ideas that, when meshed together, just forms a mess. I'm going to give Demon Hunter Outlive a 5 out of 10. Okay, this is an average album for really any band to put out, much less Demon Hunter. If I was judging this by the things that Demon Hunter has previously put out, I'll probably give it a 4 out of 10. But I'm trying to be a little bit more objective here. You know, if I came across this on Spotify, like I said, it would just sound bland and generic, and I would skip it. So that's what I'm giving it, a bland generic rating of 5 out of 10. However, I would like to have a discussion with you in the comments. So if you would let me know what you think about this album, then we can talk about it. What did you think? Did this album disappoint you? Do you think it's Demon Hunter's worst album, or do you think it's actually decent? Are there good qualities in it that I missed and I'm overlooking? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And until next time, you guys just keep it metal. Necro, what are you doing here? Slow down. What the hell are you saying, man? Slow down. Oh, shit. Well, there's only one way to kill a fanboy, and that's with objectivity and reason. Time to go smash some heads, Necro.